Welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to share with you my Tenyi deck profile. Now, if you don't know what Tenyi are, Tenyi is a very fun link-based rogue strategy, very budget archetype, because these guys are just cost like nothing and they get reprinted in the megatens, and they're just basically one of the most cheapest archetypes that are kind of like also competitive that you can get your hands on. And they're very, very fun and very cool. But before we jump right into the deck list itself, I want to say one particular thing. Is that the fact that I kind of didn't upload a video like I wanted to for this week, because for some reason, out of the blue, my throat hurts very, very badly, and because of that, I wasn't really able to record anything at the start of the week because, yeah, I don't know if you can hear it from my voice, but it just hurt really, really badly. But now I'm better, and I'm hoping I'll be able to make these videos for next week. Very, very much early, the amazement review and stuff like that, so I'm hoping they'll be able to release next week. Maybe going to have a little bit of time with that, but unfortunately, it is what it is. Sometimes things happen. But before I jump right into the video, finally, I'm going to remind you that if you want to help the channel and see more videos like this, and you just enjoy this video, please consider hitting the subscribe button and also the like button if you want to help us with the algorithm. And let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about this list, what you will change, and what do you think as overall. But without further ado, let's jump right into the list itself. Alright, so jumping into the list itself, we're going to start things off with the Tenyi monsters, of course, and we're going to start with running 3 copies of Ashuna, 3 copies of Vishuddha, 3 copies of Adahara, 3 copies of Shatana, and then the one-off copies of Nahara, and the 1 copy of Mafura. This is pretty much a pretty standard Tenyi lineup. Of your monsters. You run like 14 of these. You can run technically 15 if you want to run a little bit more of the low row, but you can just decide to do what you want to, obviously. But basically running 14 is a very, very standard lineup. Now, what do these cards do? Well, for the Tenyi monsters, all share the same following first effect, which if you control no effect monsters, you're able to special them out of your hand as a hard once per turn effect. So basically, all of these are free special summons for level for 1 summon each. And actually, you probably have seen some of these in different decks, especially this, and this. This is seen in water decks, this seen in decks that need a tuner, and this seen in Orchest back in the day as just a really, really good card. But what do these cards do individually? Well, in the case of Ashuna, which is the light one, he's able to, basically, or should I say the top row, all of them are able to banish themselves if you control a no-effect monster, or should I say a non-effect monster, that they basically able to activate their effect to banish themselves to the graveyard to do something specifically. In the case of Ashuna, you're able to banish it to summon another Tenyi from the deck, but you lock yourself to worms. In the case of Ashuna, you're able to basically banish itself from the graveyard to bounce an opponent monster. In the case of Adahara, you're able to banish it out of your graveyard to recover a worm monster out of your banish pile back to your hand, except itself. The low row, on the other hand, you have the effects that kind of like more reactive to what your opponent does, or, depending on situations. And in the case of Shatana, which is the best one, it's basically if your opponent pop all of your monsters or remove them, you can basically, like, if a face-up, if non-effect monster you control is destroyed by an opponent card effect, so it includes all of your monsters, of course, but if one of them was non-effect monster, you're able to banish this card from the graveyard, special summon one of those non-effect monsters that was destroyed, and then pop 1 monster your opponent control, which is pretty good as a recovery play. Nahara is basically reducing an opponent monster to battling a non-effect monster by 1500, and Mafura is basically if your opponent target a non-effect monster for an effect, you basically negate the activation and destroy that card, which is kind of cool, but definitely worse compared to all of the rest of them. But honestly, this is pretty much what Tenyi do. They special summon themselves, you control non-effect monsters, and they're pretty simple on that regard specifically. But now for the rest of the monsters that kind of like help the archetype, or at least I like to run. I like to run triple copies of Pearl Exceed, triple copies of Vanity's Fiend, and then the 1 copy of Mare. Now, the copy of Mare is pretty simple. I've seen some people like to run more than 1. If you would like to run more than 1, obviously kudos to you, or you can do whatever you want to. I specifically think that you don't really need more than 1, because you have so many ways to get into this, or like, you don't really need to get into this that much because it's not like 100% necessary. This definitely makes your combos better, but it's not like, oh my god, I have to open up Mare every single turn, if you know what I mean. And like, open up with multiple of these just becomes a brick. And even if you banish it with something like Pot of Desires, it's not the end of the world. It's just making your combos a little bit more consistent rather than just anything. And like I said, there's different ways to dump this into the graveyard, which is pretty cool. And then we have Vanity's Fiend, which is basically the normal summon of the deck, because as you've seen from the previous monsters, they don't have any effect on like normal summon or something, they all special summon themselves. So this is a good normal summon. You're able to summon this turn 1, you're able to turn off your opponent's entire board. Now, of course, depending on the situation and depending on the format, I like to change this to either a Lava Golem, which I run on the side, which we'll get to that, or I like to just make this into more power cards. It's really depending on the situation, but it is what it is depending on what you want to. And then Perilous Exceed is the last card. This is a new addition to the deck. I'm actually kind of like have a little bit of a hard and forth with basically Perilous Exceed, because Perilous Exceed is definitely good because of the ability that he's able to fix your combos. Basically, if like it doesn't matter which Tenyi you open, you summon a monk, and then this special summon itself out of the hand, and then just help you fix combos or helping you make combos better. Because it just served a second purpose as like Mare, but like, you know, a little bit different. So it really depends on what you want to do. Perilous Exceed is a little bit of like on the card that like I'm not 100% sure about, but it definitely does a lot of work for the deck, enough for me to want to keep this for a while. Like, this is a card that you could cut. These are all cards that you can cut for whatever you want to. Specifically, the Mare is not, but you know, I like these, and they're doing a lot of a very, very good job for the deck itself. And then for the last 6 monsters, obviously will be Hand Traps, which are 3 Ash and 3 Mansion. Honestly, depending on what you want specifically, you can run different Hand Traps of your choice. I like these. These do the job that they need to do, especially now Mansion, because of the Rising of Grave decks, especially when we're going to get Lightning Overdrive, and because of the new Snake archetype. So this has actually became a lot more important. It can also be Skull Meisner, but should be whatever you prefer specifically. And that does it for the monsters. Now I'll move on into the spells. And for the spells, I like to run 10 spells, which again, depending on what you want specifically, you can run more, which I like to run 3 copies of Vessel for the Dragon Circle, double copies of Heavenly Dragon Circle, 1 copy of the Flawless Perfection of the Tenyi, double Desires, and then double copies of Foolish Burial Goods. Now, this, like I said again, could be any lineup of spells that you want to, like, you know, more if you want specifically, but this is like the bare bone 10 that I felt like just the best, because Flawless, or should I say not Flawless, but Vessel is absolutely an insane card. It's basically a Nadir Servant for this archetype, because if you basically activate it immediately, it's just a Foolish Burial for whatever worm you want. But if you control a non-effect monster, you're able to also add to your hand a Tenyi monster afterwards immediately, which making this card absolutely ridiculous. The Foolish Burial and a Rhoda in one. Absolutely one of the most strongest spell cards for an archetype in the game, in my opinion. Ridiculous of a card. If it was more, you know, open to everything and Worm was a little bit more powerful, probably would consider it to be banned, because this card is really powerful. I'm not joking. And then we have Heavenly Circle, which is either A, you're able to tribute any worm, and if it's non-effect worm, and then add a worm to your hand, and then if it's a non-effect worm that you tributed, you're able to special summon the worm that you added to your hand, but you're not, but its effects are negated. But most of the time, what I like to do with this is that either discarding this or dumping it with Foolish Burial Goods, and then use its effect in the graveyard to banish itself if you control a non-effect monster, and then add to your hand any Tenyi card. Now, the problem with this card is that you can only use one of the effects per turn, which is dumb in my opinion, but it is what it is, and because of that, I'm just like to run discard 2, because you don't really want to draw into it. You mostly want to either Foolish Burial into it, or just not see it way too much, so you will be able to see it, but not see it all the time, and then discard it, so 2 copies just plays quite well. And then the 1 copy of Flawless is just a nice protection to your monsters or non-effect monsters, and also just draw 2, which is insane, but you don't really need to run this way too much. It's like, it's a good card, it's just not really 100% needed, like more than 1 copy. It is searchable because of this, which technically you run 5 copies of this card with these 4 cards specifically, so 1 copy is more than enough. You could banish it sometimes with the Desires, which I like to run too, but honestly, like, it's not 100% necessary for your plays to have this. It's just a very, very good card. And then Desires, obviously you run everything at 3 for the more important cards. So yeah, it's like really not the end thing in the world, and if you banish this, and a Mare. Again, it's not the end of the world. You can still make plays and still make very, very strong plays in the deck. The extra cards sometimes matter, but we only like to run the 2 because we just don't really need this all the time or need to see this all the time. So it's like more of like, if I need this, I have this, if you know what I mean. And then Foolish Burial, good, just Foolish Burial this, and that's pretty much what it does. But that does it for the spells and for the traps. Only one trap, which is 3 copies of the counter trap. Originally, I also run the skill drain, but I came to the conclusion that this format is use a lot of power spells and a lot of annoying effects that I just don't want to deal with. That I just rather have 3 counter traps that if I control a non-effect monster, these are not hard ones per turn, by the way, so you're able to just like negate an effect, and then basically it's like, doesn't activate for the turn, or they have to activate it again depending on the situation, of course. And this is like I said, it's not a hard once per turn, and basically if it's getting destroyed while it's set, it's also able to summon a non-effect monster out of your extra deck, which I don't really use that much, because most of the time I'm just like using it for its effect. But the point is, this is a counter trap, able to turn off things like Dark Ruler no more, able to turn things off like, the Sanguines and all that stuff. So being able to have something just this powerful in this deck, very, very important, and a lot more powerful in my opinion than the skill drain, because, this is also a free off and you're able to see it with the Desires, which is pretty, pretty good. But that's pretty much does it for the main deck. Now I'll move on into the extra deck. And for the extra deck, basically, I'm running the standard Tenyi Link Monster lineup, which is 3 copies of Monk, double copies of Shaman, 1 copy of Draku Masters, 1 copy of Berserker, and 1 copy of Sararara. I always have a hard time pronouncing this one. Basically, this is a very standard Tenyi lineup. There are some people who like to run a 3rd copy of this or a 2nd copy of this, depending on what you want to specifically, but I feel like this is the more standard one and allowing you to have more flex in your extra deck, because beside this guy, I run an additional 6 cards that can be your flex spots, but for the most part, these do what they need to do. Monk is just a non-effect monster that is just really good to have, because you're going into 3 of these sometimes in a game, which is insane, sometimes 2 in the same turn, if not 3. This card is definitely very, very needed to start your plays. And then you have Berserker, which is just your Link 3 that is a normal monster, so it's kind of like a good break point for that as well. Then we have Shaman, which is an insane card. She's either a discard to revive any worms, but she does lock your extra deck effects for anything besides Tenyi. You cannot activate this effect, which is a shame, but it is what it is. But, she's a great card. You discard a card, you summon a worm, which is most of the time going to discard for summoning Mare. And then her Harvard effect says that, like, if you're non-effect monster battle, you can also pop a card, which making her also very, very good going second, which is pretty, pretty awesome. And then Berserker, just really, I should say not Berserker, but Draku Masters, just depending on the normal monsters or non-effect monsters that you have in the graveyard on the field, you're able to pop cards, which is pretty, pretty good. Also have some very nice protection effects, but mostly use it for his effect for popping. And then the Link 4, a very good card to help you lock your opponent, protecting your own monsters as long as you control a non-effect monster. And it's just really, really good of a card. It's also allowing you as a quick effect to summon a token. So, like, worst case scenario, if you don't have a token with it, it's able to just have the token as an addition. Then, like, you're getting the lock / protection, which is very, very powerful. So this one is a very, very good Link 4 monster. But that does it for the Tenyi links. And then for the rest of the cards, the Tenyi Synchro, the Baxia, and the Abyss Dweller for the non-other Link monsters. Baxia, very, very good. Baxia is just like, sometimes you just need to summon Vishuna, and then normal summon Adahara, and then go into this, or, use a Mare level 4 and another level 4 Tenyi, and then basically make the this, and then pop 2 cards, which is pretty, pretty great. Abyss Dweller is just for the Pearl Exceed or whatever you need specifically to just make a rank 4 that's good against things like Eldritch and stuff, or the new Snakes. And then you have Draco Berserkers, which is just a very, 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 very good card, which is a very, very nice interruption. A lot of, like, decks that can make a level 8 synchros should probably consider playing this card, because this card is pretty good. It's just a very, very underrated, and mostly we're just playing it here because we are locked into worms sometimes. So this is a very, very good card to play because, like I said, sometimes we are locked into worms. And then for the last 4 monsters, we're playing Link monsters, which are Link Fericus, Link Karibo, Link Spider, and Appaloosa. One thing I should mention is that Appaloosa is not going to have a problem activating her effect to gain the attack based on Shaman effect, because her effect states that You can only control one Appaloosa, of course, and then the original attack of this card become 800 the link materials. So basically, you kind of like use free materials, you summon her effect will be 2400 immediately. It doesn't really consider as an activated effect, so basically Shaman doesn't really counter that, which is pretty good. And then these two are just for your Mirror tokens to help you go into the Appaloosa, whatever you need specifically, to maybe even clean them from the board. Link Haribo is also pretty great because you can turn your Link 1s back into a Link Haribo and be annoying during the battle phase. And then Lanfaricus is for the Paralytic Siege / sometimes if you get Nibiru / if you need the additional link to normal monster to kind of essentially link climb. And that's kind of just very good for that. But that's pretty much does it for the extra deck, and now we'll move on into the side. And for the side, I like to run specifically 3 copies of Lava Golem, 3 copies of Nibiru, 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird for my monsters. Honestly, Lava Golem, absolutely ridiculous Game 2 and Game 3 if you're able to go to it. And sometimes even Game 1, depending on the situation. Sometimes I like this to be instead of Vanti's Fiend in the deck. Absolutely ridiculous. This card, you don't really use your normal summon ever. You just special summon this to your opponent. Then if you have, for example, another Vishuda, you're able to bounce this to your hand and tribute over again, which is ridiculous. Nibiru is a punishing card, and Abyss and Droll and Lockbird is actually going to become a very good card again because of what are called. Drytron is actually going to come back because of the Fafnir or whatever coming up pretty soon in Lightning Overdrive, so that's actually pretty important to have. Also, Dragon Link, so that's pretty good. And then for the spells, Dark Ruler No More and Cosmic Cyclone to basically have backward removal and just turning off fields, which is pretty simple on that regard. But that's pretty much does it for the side deck and does it for the deck profile as a whole. So hope you enjoyed this one. If you find it any helpful, thank you so much. If you consider to subscribe, obviously. I don't know why it came so weird, but if you consider to subscribe, thank you. And if you are interested in the combos, I do have some kind of like basic combos for people who don't really know how to play the deck or you want to refresh and just try to understand how the deck works. So if you want to, I will reference you to the combos. If you're not interested to, that's completely fine as well. But now let's jump right into the combos themselves. Welcome for the combo section. And in the combo section, I'm going to share with you, obviously, few Tenyi combos. And for the first combo, we're going to share with you the combo of the Ashuna plus the Heavenly Dragon Circle. Now, one thing I would say about a lot of the combos is that if you do not open up with the Ashuna or, have a way to get to the Ashuna, they become the same combo just with an additional extender, so it's become like the same thing if you just add an additional card into your hand and another extender. So it's like, this is kind of like a 2-card combo / 3-card combo depending on the cards that you have in your hand. And this is what I like to call the decision combo that show you what the baseline routes for this deck is depending on the rest of the cards in your hand. But without further ado, let's jump right into the combo itself. So to start things off, because we control no monsters, special summon the Ashuna. We then go to turn Ashuna into Monk. Then, because we don't really have anything else to use this with, we're going to basically banish the Ashuna, special summon directly from our deck any extender that we want to. I most of the time like to go Adahara, and then we're going to go Adahara plus, Monk, turn it into a Shaman. Then Shaman discard the circle, and then you special summon back the Monk, and then we're going to use the Monk and the Shaman to special summon directly from your extra deck the Berserker. Now here is where we turn into Crossroads, because you have multiple things that you can do. Well, the first thing that you're actually going to do in order to, before we'll use the effect of this, is that we're going to banish the Adahara and add to our hand the Ashuna back for a later place. But this card allowing you to do multiple things that you can do. Well, these 3 options are the following. If you choose to open up the field spell, you just put the field spell. If you choose to open up the counter trap, or should I say the search the counter trap, you just set the counter trap. But if you choose to go into another Tenyi extender, you can just go into special summoning it and then special summoning the Link 4. It really depends on the rest of the cards in your hand. So depending on the rest of the cards in your hand, you can choose whatever you want to. For this particular situation, let's say we did open up with everything else, what we need, and the other card that we actually want is the field spell. So we'll banish this, obviously, and add the field spell to our hand. and then activate the field spell and end our turn to our opponent with additional card in our hand. So technically we have 4, the Berserker, and the ability to draw 2, and it's protected. But like I said, depending on what you have specifically, you can just add any of these 2 cards, as well, like, Tenyi Extender and this, and then either turn it into an Everlink 4, or just being able to basically get a counter trap. That's literally depend on what you want specifically. But that's pretty much does it for combo number 1, which is like the decision combo. Let's move on into combo number 2. Alright, so for combo number 2, this is mostly a more flexible combos in the cards that you can open up in your hand, but it's still a little bit more set, and that is open up with either, like with Vessel of the Dragon Circle, and then either this or the Ashuna. This can either be this or this one, but for this particular combo, like I wanted to, we're just going to actually use this for our starting card. But now let's get started. So starting things off, as usual, you go to Special Summon because you control no monster with no effect monster, and then you can turn this one into the Monk. Then, because we control non-effect monster, we're going to activate Dragon Circle, Vessel for the Dragon Circle. We're going to dump the Mare, and since we do control this, we can also get to our hand the Ashuna. Then, again, because we control no effect monster, Special Summon Ashuna. And then we get to Special Summon out of our extra deck the second copy of Monk, which is pretty important to do that this way and not go into Shaman right now. Because if you go into Shaman, you need an additional card for discard, and this one kind of like guarantees that you don't really need another card for discard. So now we're going to use the effect of Ashuna. We're going to banish it out of our deck and then Special Summon any level 4 Tenyi monster from our deck. And in this particular case, I decided to go with Shatana. Then, we're going to use the effect of Adahara in our graveyard, banishing it, and adding to our hand back the Ashuna, which we'll then use later in the combo, which is going to be with Shaman, which we're going to summon out of our extra deck right now. Because we need a discard outlet. We're going to use the effect of Shaman, discard the Shaman, the Adahara, or Ashuna, sorry, and then you're going to Special Summon directly from your graveyard the Mare. Mare will activate this effect twice, and then we're going to Special Summon 1, 2, 3 tokens. Then we're going to turn the Mare and the Shatana into the Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. And then we're going to use these 2 and the Shaman, obviously, into Sarahara, which is the Link 4 monster. And that is going to be your end board for this one. You got Dragon Berserker of the Tenyi, which is an interruption by itself. You got the Sarahara, which has its own protection / interruption thing. And then you also have another token on your side of the field, which allowing you to turn this so-called effect of protection / not targeting any monsters on the field with Sarahara immediately, which is awesome. So this is like really, really good so-called 1.5 interruption, I guess, combo, and like you end up with like a +1, I guess. But yeah, this is pretty much what does it for combo number 2. If you open up with Vessel of the Dragon Circle and then either Adahara or Ashuna, which is pretty good. But that does it for combo number 2. Let's move on into combo number 3. So now let's move on into our 3-card combos. And for our first 3-card combo, I'm actually going to basically do an extension on the second combo, which is what happened if you open up with Vessel for the Dragon Circle and then any Tenyi monster and then any discard outlet. Now, of course, for this particular situation, I decided to go with the best ones, but again, this can be any Tenyi monster and any discard outlet. This is just the best case scenario, and that's why I'm showing that. But, instead of if you don't open up with this, you're just not going to either end up with a field spell or the counter trap. That's pretty much the big difference. And then this, if you don't open up with this or the Ashuna, instead, you basically just don't get the recovery to your hand, which is kind of doesn't really matter for the most part, but it's just good for resource management, like I explained. But now, let's move on into the combo itself. So starting things off, we're going to start with the Special Summon of Adahara as usual. We're going to turn it into a Monk. And then we're going to follow up immediately with Vessel for the Dragon Circle, sending to our graveyard the Mare, and then adding to our hand the Ashuna. Then we're going to use the effect of Ashuna, 3 Special Summon itself, and then we're going to use it and the Monk to turn them into Shaman. Shaman will immediately use our discard outlet to Special Summon directly from our graveyard the Mare, And then Mare will spawn to our side of the field the free tokens directly from our deck. Or should I say not directly from our deck, directly to our side of the field, reducing its level to 4. Then we're going to do the following. Actually, we should have summoned Mare here, by the way. You need to leave these two zones open because we turn one of these into a Link Haribo, and then the other we're turning into a Link Spider. Because these three specifically together, like I explained before in the deck itself, are going to turn into a Palooza Bow of the Goddess, giving you a Palooza with 3 interruptions. And that's why you need these two zones open. So that was a little bit of a mistake on my part, but you need to summon Shaman, and most of the time what I like to do is just summoning Mare under it immediately to just not be confused, and then summon the 2 tokens here just for memory's sake. But for this particular situation, I just forgot about it for a second. But that's pretty much does it for that. And then if you basically have the Ashuna in graveyard, which is basically you search it, you can banish it, and then you can summon directly from your deck any level 4, and then you turn these two into the Draku Berserker. Now, because specifically in this particular situation I showed to you what happened if I open up with this and this, which is these 2 cards, I can banish both of them because I have a normal monster or a non-effect monster, and then add to my hand back the Ashuna, and then also add to my hand the Counter Trap, and then set the Counter Trap to my side of the field, and then the pass turn to my opponent. Now for this particular end board is just 5 interruption, which is pretty strong because this is no effect monster, so we can use the Counter Trap because of it. And then if we need to, we can always tribute the token because it's a level 1, and summon not the Link Spider, my mistake, but the Link Haribo directly from our graveyard if the situation will ever present itself. And we have the 3 interruption Appaloosa and the Draku Berserker of the Tenyi. So this is a pretty good end board. Again, if you don't open up with Circle, it just becomes that you don't have this. And if you don't open up with the Adahara, it just means that you don't have this in your hand. So basically we'll just like have this end board, and it's still pretty good because it's 4 interruptions. But if you open up with Circle and Adahara, it just becomes a little bit better. But that's pretty much does it for combo number 3. Let's move on into combo number 4. Alright, so for the 4th and final combo. For this combo specifically, I'm going to share with you what's going to happen if you open up once again with Vessel for the Dragon Circle, either Adahara or Ashuna, and then our final card not going to be a discard outlet, but a Parallel Exceed. Now this is going to change the deck capabilities quite a bit, because you can able to do, or should I say you are able to do quite different things because of you opening up with Parallel Exceed. Now most of the time, Parallel Exceed allowing you to do curse corrections, but in this particular instead of a combo, it's actually changing the ability to play the combo quite a bit. But now let's jump right into it without wasting any more time. So to start things off, we're going to special summon the Adahara as usual, and turn it into a monk, and that will trigger the Parallel Exceed effect, special summon itself, and another copy directly from your deck. Then you're going to turn these two into a monster that I mostly didn't really like, but in playtesting, as I explained in the extract, did come up, and for this playtesting it did come up, and that is the copy of Lanfaricus, which allowing you to have no effect monsters on your side of the field, which is pretty good, because now we're going to use the effect of Vessel for the Dragon Circle, which allow you to basically send Mare and add the Ashuna to your hand, which then you can basically immediately follow with a special summon for Ashuna, because, once again, like I said, you control no effect monsters. Then we're going to turn Monk and the Ashuna into a Shaman, and then we're going to use the effect of Ashuna in our graveyard, special summon any level 4 Tenyi, preferably Shatana, and then we're going to use the effect of Adahara in our graveyard to add back the Ashuna back to her hand, which is then going to be used as a discard outlet for Monk's effect, and then special summon the Mare out of your graveyard. Then we're going to use the effect of Mare twice, because we cannot use the third time because we don't really have space, and then we're going to use these two to basically make the Berserker, because Berserker require 2 monsters including a Link monster, and now we can finally use the effect of Mare for the third time, summoning the third token, and then turn the 2 tokens and the Shaman into the Sarahara. Then the Mare and the Shitana, or the level 4, turn into the Draku Berserker of the Tenyi. And that is pretty much going to be your end board. Now, of course, you could say this is a little bit like not the most stronger end board, but the fact that you have now a level, or should I say a Link 3 3000 beat stick that is your normal monsters actually matter quite a bit compared to basically having a token which is like 300 attack. It sounds a little bit weird, but it does matter because sometimes your opponent will be able to remove that monster with attacks or whatever, and then your protections and everything will be gone even though you have this, because they can just basically, you can do that, they can attack into it, skip their battle phase, activate an effect, you can try to activate this effect, and then, like, you know, maybe they can even immediately activate a droplets to just follow it up and have no problem with deal with you. But this will allow you to just like guarantee that you have a non-effect monster on your side of the field that kind of like create the Sahara lock that is very, very strong and very, very annoying to get over. So that's actually pretty good. And then Berserker, obviously, it's like kind of like your interruption, which is pretty good. But that's pretty much does it for combo number 4 and does it for the entire combo section. Honestly, these combos, like I said, are very simple and straightforward, but it is pretty important to know the entire baseline for the combos because, yeah, this deck you need to understand what you're doing, because locking yourself into Worm immediately and or not be able to special summon stuff could be a little bit of a problem if you don't really know what you're doing. But that's pretty much does it for the combo section, like I said. Now I'll move on into my closing words for the video. Alright, so closing up the video, honestly, I don't really have any much to say because there's really nothing much to add to this. But if you basically are interested to decide what deck I'm going to do for next week, here are the choices, the same ones from last week, because for some reason, I wonder why, maybe it's because the video was about 40 minutes for last week, nobody essentially told me what they want to see the weeks after this one. So it is what it is, but it is what happened, and these choices are once again represented on the screen, so if you want to choose from any of these, totally up to you what you want specifically, and depending on the votes, you know, we'll choose something. If not, I'm just going to choose something on random depending on what I want specifically to do that I haven't done for a while. But that's pretty much does it for the, you know, the video as itself. So hope you enjoyed. Hopefully this video helped you if you don't know how to build Tenyi, or just in general you enjoyed it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already and you just want to. And remember, creativity is the key in this game. Have a good day, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.